let me tell you a quick story about four completely different people. First, there's Robert. He's 68, worked super hard his whole life, and bought this beautiful house out in the suburbs back in the 1980s. Then we've got Karen. She's 52, crushing it in a solid marketing career, drives a nice car, and takes a great overseas holiday every single year. Next up is Marcus. He's 38, finally paid off those student loans, and spends his weekends hitting up brunch and taking cool weekend trips. And finally, Zoe. She's just 24, running a side hustle and already 3 months into her investing journey. Now, you're looking at four different people representing four different decades, right? They are living completely different financial realities. But here's the crazy part. Every single one of them fell into the exact same financial trap, literally the exact same one. It's just wearing a different disguise depending on the decade.
So the big question I have for you today is, which version of this trap are you currently living right now? Welcome to Dollar Playbook, everyone. I'm Taylor Reed, and in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what this universal trap is, and more importantly, how you can sidestep it entirely. Now, real quick, I want to set a clear baseline right at the top. This trap, it has absolutely nothing to do with being careless or bad with your money. Honestly, most of the folks who fall into this are actually pretty careful. They budget, they think things through. The trap is way sneakier than that. So, zero judgment here. We're just going to calmly look at the math and the culture behind it all.
Let's really dive into our four case studies here. Robert the Boomer, Karen from Gen X, Marcus the Millennial, and Gen Z Zoe. You see, at some point in every generation's story, the world around them decided what doing well was supposed to look like, right? It was a certain kind of home, a specific lifestyle, or maybe a curated set of experiences. And the thing is, nobody ever sits you down and explicitly tells you this stuff. You just kind of absorb these unwritten rules. It seeps in through the people you hang out with and the things our culture celebrates. So when you could finally afford to live that version of success, well, you did it because it felt like the most natural, responsible next step. Okay, so here's the core of it. This trap is all about blindly following what we call the arrival signal that was handed down by your specific generation. It happens when you prioritize looking arrived over actually being arrived. Like I said, this isn't about greed. You were just following the unwritten rules that nobody questioned. Because, well, everyone else around you was following them too. And here's the part that makes it genuinely so hard to spot. From the inside, it never feels wrong. Actually, it feels like progress. So let's break down each generation and really listen for the exact moment those unwritten rules snuck into their lives.
Section 1, Robert and the White Picket Fence.
So Robert grew up in the post-war era, right? He watched his parents rent their whole lives. For him, owning a suburban home was the ultimate signal that you had made it. But this brilliantly highlights the hidden danger. Look at the numbers today. Robert's house is worth 4 times what he paid for it. On paper, the guy looks incredibly wealthy. But because he spent literally decades maintaining that signal, paying for the house, the landscaping, the home extensions, he was quietly underfunding his actual retirement pension. He just doesn't have enough liquid savings to comfortably fund 25 years of retirement. And if he sells the house to get the cash, he'd have to leave the neighborhood he's called home for 40 years. The house itself wasn't the trap. The trap was the belief that the house was the entire financial plan. Moving on to Section 2, Karen and the sneaky upgrades. Now, Karen came of age during the rise of the dual-income household. Earning a 6-figure salary felt like the perfect excuse to just constantly upgrade her life. We call this lifestyle creep. Her trap was a lot quieter than Robert's. It didn't feel like one massive, risky decision. It felt like 100 small, totally reasonable ones. I mean, she got a promotion at 32, so obviously she upgraded the car. She hit 6 figures at 38, so they moved to a bigger house and tacked on a nice overseas holiday. Every single time she got a raise, her expenses grew exactly as fast as her income. When you think about it, it's essentially the exact same boomer trap, just wearing a business casual outfit. When you have a really high income but equally high expenses, it leaves this tiny, flat sliver for your savings. Basically, Karen delivered her generational wealth signal on direct debit every single month. The gap between what came in and what went out stayed almost exactly the same throughout her entire career, just at a progressively higher number. And now she's 52 years old. She's roughly 10 years out from retirement, and her financial math is looking extremely tight for someone who's been pulling in a high income for 2 decades.
Next up is Section 3, Marcus and the Experience Economy.
So if you're a millennial watching this right now, we definitely have to acknowledge that the 2008 financial crisis genuinely moved the system against you. It completely wiped out the early careers of an entire cohort, right at the exact moment they were supposed to be building their foundation. So, what happens when you literally can't afford the traditional signals of arrival? Well, you start spending on the things you can afford. And culture totally validated this pivot. We all heard it. Spend on experiences, not things. You can't take money to the grave. Every lifestyle brand, every social media post told millennials that prioritizing experiences was actually the enlightened, smarter approach to money. So Marcus spent his weekends at brunch and booking trips, mainly because a mortgage was completely out of reach and he was constantly told memories were the true measure of wealth. But here is the trap Marcus unknowingly walked right into, using beautiful memories as a substitute for building real assets. Honestly, Marcus was effectively masking his vague anxiety about his financial future by simply booking the next trip. Don't get me wrong, he has a full passport and incredible stories, but at 38 years old, he has almost zero investments. For millennials, the arrival signal became the lived life. It was marketed to them so effectively that many didn't even notice it was just a different costume performing the exact same function as Robert's big suburban house.
Finally, Section 4, Zoe and the Digital Aesthetic.
Gen Z is arguably the most financially literate generation in history. I mean, Zoe knows what an index fund is, and she completely grasps compound interest. But there's a really stark contrast in where her money is actually going. For Gen Z, the arrival signal isn't a house or a passport. It's an aesthetic. It's about performing wealth for an audience. Now, Zoe's doing the right thing by putting 50 pounds a month into her stocks and shares account. That's great. But she's simultaneously dropping 200 pounds a month on brands, tech setups, and ring lights whose primary function is literally just to look good on camera. So she's using all the right financial language, but she's spending heavily to perform wealth rather than quietly building her actual financial foundation.
Section 5, Escaping the Trap.
Okay, so we've got 4 people, 4 decades, but one universal trap. The big question is, how do we escape it? Well, first off, let's all take a deep breath. Robert, Karen, Marcus, and Zoe are not greedy, and they definitely aren't stupid. They simply executed the playbook that their culture handed to them. The good news here is that escaping only requires one specific psychological shift. You have to separate the signal from the substance. You must consciously decide that you are willing to look a little less wealthy than you actually are. That means you have to delay the costume. You drive that older car a little longer, you stay in the smaller house, or you just completely resist the pressure to upgrade your aesthetic. And most importantly, you take the money you saved by avoiding those upgrades and you put that difference directly into compounding assets where it can actually grow. Let's look at some concrete steps for our older generations. For Robert, escaping the trap didn't mean he couldn't buy a home, it just meant keeping the house, but aggressively funding his pension instead of putting every single spare dollar into home extensions. For Karen, the escape route is a really simple compromise. Pick just one lifestyle upgrade per raise. If you get a promotion, awesome, take the holiday, but bank the rest of that new income. That small shift allows your income growth to finally outpace your lifestyle growth. And for the younger crowds, it's equally actionable. Marcus doesn't have to give up travel. He just needs to take 1 big trip a year instead of 4 and auto-invest the difference every single month. And for Zoe, the shift is about focusing entirely on building her actual investing number, rather than the aesthetic of having money online. Skipping a few minor trips or just resisting the urge to buy that latest tech setup completely alters the trajectory of their long-term financial health. It's a total game changer. So this crucial point is perfectly captured in one golden rule. Assets first, lifestyle second. Every single time. Now, keep in mind you aren't delaying your lifestyle forever. You're simply delaying it until your assets are doing enough of the heavy lifting to genuinely pay for that lifestyle on their own. The people who truly win financially are the ones who build the foundation first, way before they ever buy the arrival signal. I want to leave you with one final thought to reflect on today. Which version of this trap are you in right now? Is your net worth entirely trapped in your house walls? Are your expenses perfectly matching your income? Are you buying experiences instead of assets, or are you performing wealth online? Tell me in the comments. And again, this isn't to be judged, but because the very first step out of any trap is being able to bravely name it out loud. If this explainer brought you some value today, please gently hit that like button, share this with a friend who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Dollar Playbook. It really helps us continue bringing you calm, practical financial lessons. Thanks for spending your time with me, everyone. I'm Taylor Reed, and I'll see you in the next one.